Welcome back, guys, for one more episode of It's a DARMAR stream. I hope you hit the subscribe button. If you didn't, hit it now. Today I have one guest that I have been chasing for months to bring. His name is Jerry Perkins. He's a frontman of a Boxcutter and hard ops plugin for Blender. He believed in Blender 10 years ago when nobody believed it, or even more, Jerry, I'm not sure, but he believed for a very long time in Blender when there was nobody to work in it. Today Blender is becoming a standard in the industry, and Jerry, for me at least, Jerry is one people to thank for that.
Well, thanks, you're too kind. Yeah, there was a time when, everybody I knew used to actually make fun of me for using Blender, and also try to push me in other applications, waving over, the prospect of jobs and stuff like that over my head. But thankfully, perseverance has shown that, Blender's more than capable. What's going on, DARMAR? You died? Alright, welcome to It's a DARMAR with your host, Master Xeon1001. So in this video we'll be talking about some of the new things that's come to the latest release of Hard Ops. Right before this episode started out, I wanted to demonstrate some of the new features that were coming to Hops. However, one of them was so crucial that it was worth putting out a quick emergency update. Let's see. Receiving a message. Okay, there we go. DARMAR's back.
I don't know why this is happening always, but now I have a great microphone, and again it happened, and I started speaking and punching the camera so everybody can see me that I'm angry. But what I said, thank you for taking over, by the way, Jerry. So what I wanted to say is that Boxcutter is one of the best plugins that I ever used, and I'm super thankful that you made me switch to it, because I used Maya before for a long period of time, and then I learned about your plugin with Blender, and it changed my life. So I want to speak today about it. This plugin gives a lot of options when you're modeling, and it is insane. And I want you to tell me a little bit how you came to conclusion that you can create it and make it, who was the responsible, and so on.
Well, the Boxcutter's creation is quite an interesting story. Whenever it was first created, it was presented to me by Adrian Rakowski, who's second in command when it comes to operations, as we call it. When he had presented it to me, the initial suggestion was to make it a button inside of another tool. However, the more we looked at it, the more we realized that it's something that could stand alone on its own and allow us to completely reapproach the Boolean workflow in a completely different way. And so instead of just making it a button that we would have forgotten about, possibly not even ported over with 2.8, it had its own life to it. That's kind of been the strategy with the tools that we create, is to have them live on for a period of time. Whenever we first got into hard surface modeling, me and AR, whenever we first met up, it was kind of a tool graveyard where a lot of our favorite tools had gone unupdated for long periods of time, and it was just a dead scene. So one of the first and foremost things that we focus on is ensuring that the tool has a extended life, that there's something to look forward to as far as the future goes. A lot of people ask, what's next for this tool after this update? And of course, the obligatory answer is that there's mandatory fixes and revisions of initial ideas that always has to be done. For example, we recently put out the ability to cycle through cutters. However, some sort of listing system we've determined would be most optimal, and with the artist in mind, a more visual system for seeing what cutters you cycle through in addition to a list would probably be the most optimal idea. So there's always a small degree of discussion that we go into before tools are created to try to plot out the fastest point to it. So I would say, the synergy of working together is also played a large role in being able to get things done. Like I refer to myself more as a taskmaster or a front man. Like usually I'm behind the scenes just working on ensuring that the next update comes along, that certain things are coming to fruition, while more key players are actually working on the things in mind. So in the end, it always does come together. Like for example, with this latest Hard Ups update, we added this button up top that should be a nice little portal for new users to quickly get around and get used to what Hard Ups has to offer without having to learn any hotkeys. This is something that will now be present from the moment you enable it. But as we collaborated with each other on it, it started off with just this one button, but Proxy came in and helped me add additional buttons in which I was able to add the render panel. He added the technology for us to be able to have these collapsible via triangles and in their own sections, in addition to whenever you use export OBJ or FBX and hops now, if you have the object selected, it will export only the selected version triangulated, so you don't have to click any additional buttons. This was based off of some emails from a 3D Code user who was having some issues getting things out. In addition to that, he was also able to add the entirety of the previous helper there, which is just immense. In addition to that, we're able to take the entire KitOps panel from the KitOps tool, that if it's present, we have that as a panel, and then finally a help portal. So it's through the collaboration with each other that these ideas really come together and take life, because just alone it's just something simple, but it's like, oh my god, I got this idea. It's like, all right, well, let's see what that looks like. All right, that idea looks cool. Let's take that idea and go this other direction with it, and then finally it comes together at the end.
Yeah.
Sorry, kind of a long-winded answer.
No worries, we have a lot of time to speak. Today is a special episode for me. But guys, you can see on the Jerry's screen, he's working at the moment the Boxcutter, and it is for me to change completely my workflow, because it's literally cutting the objects and making hard surface stuff is so easy. I work a little bit more organic stuff than this, but for me it's working perfect. For example, I'm never coming back to Maya, only if Maya takes something out really good, but I don't think that's gonna happen recently. And what I want to know, Jerry, what made you continue working in Blender when Blender was still on the beginning and wasn't so famous and a lot of people were?
Well, Blender was always the best. I just felt that personally that Blender was a little built for someone like me. Whenever you're first brought into 3D, depending on what program you're brought into, be it Maya or 3ds Max, there's always that degree of time investment that creates a loyalty towards the program, which is why I've never indulged too much in convincing other people to switch their software. So when I got acquainted with Blender, it was my first 3D program. So I think it gave me a stronger foundation. As I read through the books and documentation, it was kind of head slapping to learn how things work. Like you look at the classic hotkey of Control P for parent, for example. It's Control P. In your head logically, that should be easy to remember. And then if you wanted to unparent, that hotkey is actually Alt P. So with that sort of ideology in mind, if you ask someone, hey, what do you think the bevel hotkey is? The logical answer, if they come from Lightwave, they're going to say B, something I found out later. But the actual answer is Control B. So, it's these sort of things that I think, the longer you stay invested in Blender, the more they begin to click for you. But, I remember there was a time when Blender didn't even support Ngons. And when Ngons were newly introduced, I was initially kind of against it. I was like, this is crazy. Why would you want a shape with more than 5 polys? Why on earth would someone want that? It's just too many points on a poly. This is madness, But if you look at me now, I just booleans all day. Ngons have always been kind of I gotta get that selection right. Booleans have always been sort of a temporary form of geometry, like kind of hold the phone sort of thing, where you can place what you need there while you put together what it is that you actually want it to become. So it's just a matter of getting used to it. But there's a lot of evolutions that I think happened to Blender that allowed it to get to this moment. So Blender's always been great coming from my side, but the things that they've added recently that have brought in such a swarm of new users, I think, are really kind of some concessions, like left mouse click select. I think that's something that just appeals to people coming from every application.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was initially against that, but after a while, it became to the point where it's like, it's probably better that we're more like every other program, because it makes it easier for you to exit Blender and go to any other program.
But why were you against changing to the left mouse button click?
Well, for one, they got rid of W. W was like the greatest hotkey ever in 2.79. It was the specials menu, which now the specials has been delegated to the right mouse click, which is all right in most cases, but I still think there's some improvements that could be done to it. I think just being a old time user, it's just one of those things you have to get used to. When Blender 2.5 came out, I was actually a holdout for that one. And I was like, I'll never switch over 2.5. It's just too different. This is crazy. 2.49 for life. And that's crazy to say, because 2.49 was hideous. You open 2.49, your eyes will begin to bleed. But that's once you go into the preferences and turn on rounded buttons and start putting some soft
Jerry,
shadow.
by the way, you froze. Your screen froze. Your screen has frozen. I thought that it's me, but you froze. Because it's mostly me. So are you sharing still your screen?
I never stopped sharing.
Okay, it's working again. I don't know what happened.
Now it's working.
It froze. I don't know what happened, but no worries. Yeah. I mean, Blender is developing so fast now for me, and there is so many things happening. I mean, look at Eevee, look at cycles, look at everything. I mean, it's becoming a standard in the industry. It's really
the development game has also gotten very interesting. I mean, as a result of tools becoming such a interesting place now, there's people like Machine who's come out with very interesting tools.
Yes.
That I think are forever going to change the face of Blender. Even once he's concluded with his work, it'll be one of those things that other software will still strive to catch up to. Like, I don't know if Modo or Maya has a decal workflow, but I think it's one of the greatest things added to Blender is the ability to completely fake detail.
Yeah, that only has Keyshot that I know. I don't know about other programs. For Maya, I don't know, but the Keyshot, for example, has that, and it's called a bit different, but it's amazing. It's amazing, and I love it.
Speaking of Keyshot, they're now about to render on GPU, which is amazing and insane in my opinion. Like, I can't wait to find out about that. Keyshot is one of my favorites.
Yeah, it is a really good piece of software. I love using it. I started using it when I was a 3D designer back then, and for visualization it was amazing. But now, as I told you a couple of days ago, I'm playing with Eevee because I think it gives so many more options that Keyshot does, and it's free again, so cutting corners on software cost, it's always very important for every freelance designer, because it gives you opportunity to invest that money in some other fields.
Also, Cycles is almost perfect. I mean, with the new denoiser stuff that's been added, I can't wait to jump back into it and see what's going on with it.
Yeah. I'm looking Andrea Chiampo. He is working now on Cycles. He is making some kind of skeleton, and it looks crazy stuff. I love it. I love where Blender is going. I love that companies are investing in it, and for me, I'm gonna repeat it again, one of the best plugins in my life that I use is Boxcutter and HardOps, because guys, for me it sped up so much the workflow. I mean, something that I worked in Maya, let's say I'm a 3D concept designer and I do concept design, so I don't need to optimize geometry or stuff like that. I just need to deliver something the 3D artist will optimize. In Maya, it would take me to model something 7 days that with Jerry's Boxcutter and hard ops would take me 2 to 3 days, which cut a lot of period of time working on the piece and gives me opportunity to work on other stuff and much faster. So thank you for that, Jerry. Thank you for that and for showing me Boxcutter.
Oh my God! Always glad to meet someone who's enthused with the product. I'm always so used to looking at it from a critical sense, thinking of improvement, that sometimes it's hard to take any sort of thankful credit for it, because in my head I'm like, all right, but we got to improve this one thing. We got to make it better, faster, and smarter, and easier to deal with, and more beginner proof. But thank you for those kind words.
My pleasure, man, because it has really changed everything for me, and I'm really, really, really enjoying it. So what I want to talk with you about now is, are there any new plugins that you are planning or making, or you're gonna develop these two until they are perfect, as you say?
We're a bit big on product loyalty. Like with Hard Ops as a product, I definitely intend to see it through until the end, until the point in which it's so perfectly refined and bug free that it's something that we can just let drift on. Same with Boxcutter, and also being able to work on two tools with certain constraints kind of allows us to think in a certain space in a more focused manner. However, I do endeavor to someday try to make drivers easier, or to one of the tools that actually got me started with coding was this macro maker. And I've always thought it would be cool to make a really nice macro maker to be built into Blender that would allow someone to easily make a script to the level that we did, by connecting nodes or doing something like that. Like, it's something that we discuss internally all the time. Not everything's always a paid pursuit, but it'd definitely be cool to create something that would actually help the next generation of coders. Like, this macro thing is something that I'm always pondering, because it existed in 2.79 and was, or 2.65 or whatever version we got started in, but it doesn't exist now. And the idea was just one and done. So I think there could be a way for that to be taken further. The idea of making a driver magician is always something that I've pondered as well. Basically, a way to manage automated drivers on an object. Like, for example, in this area of my scene, I have a camera on an empty, and it's just set to rotate in perpetuity. And I set that up using scripted expressions, which I go over in some of my videos, because setting up keyframes for the beginning and end is just too much work. In fact, in this case, I don't actually need it because I'm goofing off with a different idea. But, stuff like that. Like, everything I deal with in videos, I'm always pondering how I could possibly make it easier and create a workflow to further automate it, to take it further. So who knows what the future holds with it. I mean, there's a couple of ideas that were kind of rolled around, just figuring out places to properly insert in order to pull something off. We'll move this to a new collection. Call this P2. Sorry.
No worries, we are here. It's a casual chat, as I always like to say. So, what are you doing now? What was that function? I never saw that.
Right now, I'm just creating a duplicate, and then I toggled all the modifiers off where I'm going to scroll through and locate certain modifiers that I don't want present. Right now, we've been kind of going through a hard look at hard ops, just to make sure that everything's going in the way that we need it to, as far as the tools being stable and perfect for 2.8. So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing right here, is just making sure that the capability still exists where I can scroll through with the modifier scroll and just turn off something as simple as that pillar in order to take this in a completely different direction. We'll apply everything, mirror it, make it double wide, and now we have a blanker area to play with. Break up some of the sameness here,
Yeah. That's guys what I'm talking about as we speak, Jerry.
Just ended me.
No worries.
Down.
It
Undo,
happens.
guys.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
snap.
didn't see this, guys. You never saw this. Yeah, it happens. But for me, for example, my would crash on every 15 minutes when I'm doing this complex stuff. It would crash literally in every 15 minutes if the geometry is not perfect. So that's for me quite normal that it happens from time to time. Nothing wrong with it. It can be annoying, but for me, it's not a minus, to be honest, because other softwares also create these kind of problems. So. I always want to ask you, do you think that the Blender is the future? But Blender is the future for me, and it is a present also at the time. Do you think that there will be a point in time when Blender will take over literally the other software the other software positions in the big studios? Because this year we finally heard that it's entering the studios. How fast do you think it's gonna fully enter the studios, the big studios that have contracts with other softwares and stuff like that?
Well, one of the things we hardly ever talk about is some of the levels of client that we see pick up the product sometimes. So I have high hopes for the future. Sometimes we catch an email address of someone quite interesting. So I think that Blender is definitely moving forward in a big way, even if it's not completely public. I mean, it always comes down to the artist, like whenever I was doing 3D, people were saying stuff like 3D will never have a place in the industry, and I've always scratched my head and went like, what industry are you talking about? Because I get jobs all the time, and people hardly ever ask, hey, are you using this program? Are you using this specific program? Like at the end of the day, they're like, hey, can you give me an OBJ? Can you give me a FBX? Can we get this textured and so and so? At the end of the day, OBJ is like MasterCard. It can come from anywhere. It's not like it's watermarked with information from Autodesk or something crazy. So when people talk about the industry, it's like, what industry are you talking about? You talk about the industry that crunches people to death and then lets them go without severance or compensation or insurance. That industry, because I personally, when it comes to 3D, I guess a lot of people have always worked their way towards some goal of being in a cubicle inside of some studio, but I've always looked for actually that independent aspect of 3D where you're not enslaved to a specific corporation, So
Freelancer.
freelancing for clients, and it's a tough lifestyle, like it makes you like a sales buyer because you have to keep getting jobs in order to survive. So the more independent you are of that system, probably the better. Like it depends. There's still dream jobs that I would go get crunched in the industry in a heartbeat to work on Halo. Like hands down. Like if they were like, "Hey, go work on Master Chief, but we're going to lock you in the basement," I'd be like, "Sure, which basement? Is there going to be a snack bar?" I'd ask the important questions. How many Red Bulls a day? But I think as far as the industry goes, it really is based off of like individual artists and talent. Like if you're ever looking for what talent Blender possesses, you look no further than the top row. Like the people that make it up there, as always, I consider everyone a legend who makes it up there. It is like ZBrush's top row.
Yeah.
So looking at the stuff that pops out up there. It's almost no different than the stuff that I would see on ArtStation. Maybe a little more curated, less boobs and lewds, but still all right as a place to check out. So it's really in the hands of the artists. Like Ben Morrow is a big fan of Blender, and he puts out amazing work. Jama is doing just next level stuff with minimal effort.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I think really sells Blender is the concept guys. The more concept guys who get into Blender, the better off it'll be,
Yeah.
at least in my opinion.
It shows the creativity. It doesn't show the workflow. It shows the creativity, how you can design, how you can make something creative in Blender, and that's what always sells for the software. And I completely agree with you. Yesterday I saw Ben Mauro's post, who was on this stream before, and he did the TV renders with holograms and stuff like that. That looks so good. Jama is also doing a great stuff. Maybe I should invite him on the next stream. But
Oh, he'd be great.
yeah, he is doing wonderful stuff in Blender, from grease pen to other stuff. So it's great to see that kind of guys working in Blender, because shows to other guys that it is possible. And for me,
Exactly.
the most fascinating stuff about Blender is it's free. It's free. There is no excuse. I don't have money. Everybody almost has the money to buy a computer, sit down and work for 2 years until they can get freelance work and stuff like that. So there is no excuse anymore, guys. And that's what I love about it. I really love about it.
And make a path. I mean, the barrier for entry is lower than it's ever been as far as getting into 3D. There's a time when I was taking buses to various jobs and trying to study about this stuff, on the way in between.
Which year was that?
Probably like 2010.
Yeah.
The way I actually found Blender was I was reading this book about web design.
Okay.
And in one of these books, they were saying you can import content to Blender to web pages by exporting it from a 3D program like Maya or Max or Blender. And I read that line and I was like, I wonder what Blender is. And I started checking it out, and that was it. No more need for dealing with web design.
Yeah. I mean, 10 years ago, that's only that 2010, that's 9 years ago only. And industry has changed so much, and it's going to change even more now because it's getting really, really fast. And yeah, the Blender is definitely positioned now. I'm so happy about it. So happy about it. You're now modeling a helmet, if I'm seeing correct on your screen.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, the workflow of Blender, guys, now it's crazy. It's crazy. You will see how fast, Jerry. Can you show the corridor you're modeled, so people see and we discuss a little bit about it. And what I also love about Blender is that you literally click a button and 2 seconds later it opens. It doesn't take time to open. It's like click, click. That's it.
Opens fast, closes fast, restarts fast,
Yeah.
crashes fast, opens fast.
Can be on memory stick. So,
And also I crashed and lost probably 12 seconds of progress. So in the end, it wasn't really that much of a loss. I mean, when you have your autosave set to a minute, you can deal with any level of instability that Blender's going to throw at you.
But can you show the corridor so guys can see it? So look at the corridor, guys. I mean, this was modeled in 20 minutes. Jerry modeled this, and it already has a material on it. And
oh yeah, just a base material.
yeah,
just
but
a
it's
slice.
there. It's there. Look, and you're seeing the whole corridor, and look how many details it has. Look how many details it has. 20 minutes, guys. So get the Boxcutter, get Hard Ops, forget about Maya, forget about any other software. Blender is the place to be. So yeah, I'm such a good commercial. I'm such a good commercial.
I know you're the best ad ever. DARMAR for Team C.
You need to put me on your packaging box, my face.
Oh man, you'd sell it. I'd have you next to a missile.
But yeah, I'm doing this because I truly believe in it since the moment I started using it. And yeah, it really changed the perception how you can model stuff, how you can design stuff. Because when you're a 3D modeler, let's explain one thing. People mostly don't understand what's the difference between 3D artist and 3D concept artist. So I'll have to explain that. I started doing that in previous stream, but I will explain it just fast. So 3D artist, 3D concept art, guys, is somebody who does concept art in 3D. And he designs stuff there. It can be anything from a character to weapon to a spaceship. Helmet that Jerry is now doing. And that kind of geometry doesn't have to be optimized in quads, in UVs and stuff like that. It just needs to look good and to be presented. It can even be a broken geometry. And there are engons there are Dynamesh stuff in ZBrush when we are speaking about that. While the 3D artist is the guy that comes next and he gets your 3D design and then he needs to optimize it in quads and stuff like that. So that's why I love Jerry's plugins, because you can design really fast, give that geometry to 3D artist, he optimizes it from games, VFX, and you're set to go. I know Jerry also works in Blender. I didn't touch that workflow still, but he is working with Retopo and UV and stuff. I'm still working in other software for that. So I needed to clarify that, and I want to speak a little bit now about the what are for you advantages. Is the Retopo good for you in Blender? Is UV good for you? Do you think is it better or it's worse? Something can be improved, because I know Blender community is big and likes improvements. So what do you think about that stuff?
Well, when it comes to Retopo, I've always handled it vanilla, which vanilla involves just putting a plane there and deleting all the vertices and turning on something called face snapping at the top. We'll just have it project individual elements. And from here, I should be able to draw vertices. All right, let's try that again. We'll add a plane, and we'll just actually merge this one at the center. There we go. Sorry, must have had a lapse of thought there. And then we'll just start extruding verts. And so I'll start actually using the basic modeling tools of Blender itself of double-clicking an edge to select the whole thing, G to grab, E to extrude, double-clicking the whole thing, and start bringing it out. And so in order to kind of show what's going on, and the reason I've always done it this way is because old habits just die real hard. I mean, this helmet's nowhere near worthy of being retopologized, but you can see over in my local view over on the side what I'm getting so far. And I'm just using insert loop cut, G to grab. Now there's other tools out there like Retopo Flow that definitely help automate and streamline the process. And the only reason that I'm not using it at this moment is I just don't have it installed. So right here, I'm going to put it over in the middle, and I'm just going to use hop smear in order to mirror it across. And we're just going to grab this and place it here, and start building the middle bridge. You could have also done it manually, but might as well just use the most linear, best hotkey for the job there. Right here, we'll snap this point back, and so on. And by doing this, I've actually become quite fast at retopologizing models. But with Blender 2.8, it has changed a little bit. I've been working my way around to talking more about the retopology tools of Blender. However, I feel that they're just not as awesome as they were in 2.79, or at least as optimized for me. Like sometimes I deal with the mesh having to sink in. In fact, right now, it looks like it's actually not that bad, so it's doable. Like for example, right here, I'm just using GG to slide, and then I'll press G again to snap it onto the surface. And so even retopology is something that can be done very quickly. Sometimes I see people commenting on my videos saying, wow, that model would be so hard to retopo. But as a person who's had to retopo a lot of their own models, it's almost made me in a way where I work where I can get a good bake out. So most of the cuts I do, I kind of cut with baking in mind, where I don't want something that's going fully flush into something because it won't bake. Instead, give it like a fillet so it has something to catch the light. So you'll see me kind of implement slants and slopes kind of into my modeling to make that sort of stuff easier. Also, since I keep things non-destructive for a time, that also means I'm able to revert it to an earlier state. So I could apply modifiers on a simpler version, and then from there retool that into my UV'd version. So depending on how badly I want to get something baked out, I could either put in an excessive amount of work or a large amount of work. In fact, here's my retopo that I've made over here just while I'm talking using the vanilla method. But there are, this works good to an extent. But if you start having to retopologize like arms and legs and fingers and digits, then you may want to put a cylinder around it and shrink wrap it. Like if I had Retopo Flow going, I would show that. But one of their best tools is the ability to draw contours. And Retopo Flow, you can go buy it. You can get it for free, however you want to do it. But it's definitely one of those things worth looking into on your way into Blender, because retopology can be a little tedious. I do understand that not a lot of people would like dealing with vanilla methods, but something like this makes it that if I were to go jump into Maya and start using their modeling toolkit to retopo, I would just feel right at home.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes the Retopo toolkit isn't the most their modeling toolkit is the most stable, but I do think it was I do think it was still a good idea if it was implemented properly. It was a good idea back in Maya 2012 when they first put it in there.
We are talking about where you're drawing quads points and then it connects the quads, right?
Yeah, and this whole workflow gets even crazier. Like I'll enable another tool that I'm a big fan of called F2, which F2 is built into Blender. So if you just go in your add-ons and you enable F2, this thing will basically do what's called a predictive face filling. So if you look at this screen, you'll see it happening. I'll select this point, and I'll just press F, and you'll see that it predicted a quad here. Select this point, F, predict a quad. This is probably one of the most essential modeling tools ever. Let me bring up the creator, Bart Crouch. This guy's a genius.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Now I'm shocked.
Like as far as Blender modelers go and people who understand the modeling pipeline of Blender, like Bart is one of those people I watch for in the shadows because he's created some of the best editions of Blender, period, that's really taken this thing into the 21st century as far as modeling. Now F2 that I'm showing you here, this is something that is in no other program, this predictive face filling. So if you're just modeling freehand, you can really just kind of work things up slow. Like right now it's auto grabbing, which I usually think is off. It's kind of weird. Which this tool even has all sorts of great behaviors in it, like the auto grab that I'm talking about to make things simpler. We'll rotate around back. And the alternative is if this tool was not on, it would just fill it with triangles. So I would actually notice immediately if this wasn't present.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I work in Blender now, but I never use this. And so guys, F2 is the name and it's built in the Blender. You can immediately turn it on. It's great stuff. However, I must say that I'm still used to working in Maya Retopo because for me, somehow that clicking points and stuff, I'm not disrespecting Blender, sorry guys, sorry Jerry, I'm just saying that still the Maya one for me suits better. But this was really fast, guys. Look how many 10 minutes and you retopoed the whole head. So
yeah, well, I mean, for this stuff, practice makes perfect. So, I mean, if you've already put in a massive time investment in another program, then by all means, stick with that. It's kind of my motto. I've always told people, I never tell people to switch to Blender. I always just say, it's just something you should add to your tool belt.
Yeah.
Like if you try Blender and you actually fall in love with it, then that's you. That's your decision. But if you open it as an app, import things, try it a little bit of rendering, play with some Eevee rendering cycles, just get up in and out of there, just get in there to just do retopo, just to goof off to, like if we were to UV this thing, like hypothetically, let's just talk about like UVs. This worst model ever, by the way. So I'm just going to go ahead and just use S-sharpen from HardOps in order to S-sharpen's like hard surface smooth. Like I posted on Twitter how I wish that in Blender's right click menu they had the option for enable auto smooth. Like just that one thing I think would make Blender feel a little more catered towards hard surface. And also let's make sure there's no seams on this. So we'll clear seams. So and also I'm just getting rid of any odd markings here. And we'll just mirror that across to have our work. So mirrored. So if we select this with L, this is all one continuous mesh, and we jump over to UV. When it comes to UVing a head, one down the back, split it on the side, and we'll just use C to deselect some of this stuff. And hope that I got an equal selection on both sides. Looks like I come up 3 edges on the other side. There we go. So we'll Control E, mark seam, select all, U, unwrap, and that's it. So this thing's done. So if I wanted to preview what the UVs look like on this, we add a material, which, principal shader is the coolest material to me because you have metallicity, you have roughness, which is just cash money when it comes to rendering. But for simplicity's sake, we'll switch it to diffuse, which has less channels. And while we're looking at our UVs here, we can just say new, and instead of generated type being black, we'll make it UV grid. So now we have a UV grid here. And if we go over to color and click the circle, sometimes I hypothetically go over in my head what it's like to explain this stuff, and I'm like, wow, this is kind of complicated. But now we're actually looking at the UV tiles that we have for this in the 3D view. In fact, trying to deselect. Can I deselect? What's going on here?
Oh no, oh no. Yeah, but look at it, guys. It's unwrapped immediately.
And I think also there's something called live unwrap here, where if I just go through and start modifying the geometry, it'll just keep unwrapping it on the fly to keep your unwrap going. So, and then of course you can bake this stuff. Like if I wanted to, I guess bake isn't part of Eevee cycles though. We have a bake tab. So if I wanted to hit this with the ambient occlusion, watch, this is where it'll make a full, okay, circular dependency. Down here, it'll store in the air, which circular dependency just means we have something pointing into itself. So we'll jump to the shading tab, which for some reason the shading tab starts you off in world. We will change that to object, disconnect it, and now we'll bake. And we see it baking down here.
Yep.
I've seen in some of the suggestions of concepts for Blender of people, all right, we have no light here. But the point is that you're able to also do baking in Blender as well. However, with Substance Painter being so crazy right now, I would reserve baking for that.
Yeah, the Substance is story for itself.
Yeah, who knows why my bake is so black? Probably because there's another mesh laying on top of it.
Yeah, but the people can understand the workflow, so it's not a problem.
But yeah, no sidetracking there.
Yeah, but guys, did you see this? I mean, we are live for 45 minutes, something like that. Jerry modeled the corridor with a lot of details. He modeled the head. He retopoed the head, and he UV'd the head, and he baked it. So it's really very fast. And now we are back to the Boxcutter, my favorite thing in this world. And yeah, guys, this is for me the present, future, and the future. So I strongly suggest anybody who's watching this stream to check it out. I will post a link. Boxcutter is the name. Yeah, we can explain this. Perfect. You took the custom cutter. Do you want to explain them a little bit that, because it's one of the things that I surely liked when I saw it.
So one of the new features added to Boxcutter 7.1.3 has been extractions, which is what I'm demonstrating here. Like basically, if you cut anything into a surface, you're able to take it. Here, we'll jump to layer 2 and just kick everything out for simplicity's sake, and we'll make a sphere. This was one that I was preparing to actually do a video talking about extractions, but this will be a good opportunity. So we'll also turn on snap dots. There we go. So snap dots is just a quick way to get your circle to go perfectly in the center of something else, or any shape for that matter. So we'll just cut a interesting little shape in here. We were just talking about the need for radial symmetry today. It's been one of those things on the table for a while. We've been thinking of ways to make it intuitive for both Hardops and Boxcutter at the same time. It's kind of really been a conundrum with it. We want the tools to maintain parity, with Hardops being a more technical way to do things, and Boxcutter being a more artistic, concepty way to do things. So I enabled one bowl shape, which I'll be using as the jumping off point, and we'll enable active only. And so I'll just draw a circle here, press Y, and we'll just take that entire cut array that we just did, And then we'll just draw it again right here. And this is just a start. I mean, there's definitely a whole lot of additional thoughts that we're kind of putting into this that we want to be able to take this to the level of. In fact, we will up the level of subdivision just by 1 to get that circle looking good. We don't want any faceting. Right there, we made a mistake. We'll just GZZ that just a little bit. But that is extractions.
Yeah.
I've actually been meaning to try to work on a spherical drone using self-cut. Self-cut's another favorite in Boxcutter, at least for me personally, where you could take a box, or not even a box, we'll use a custom shape, and instead of having a custom shape, we're going to press C to make this the custom shape, this cube. And now as we cut into the cube itself is being used as the cutter. So as we're cutting it, it's actually generating more cuts from itself. So the shape is just exponential.
And it gives so many options to do it.
Yeah, and then once you cut something interesting with this, like it's kind of an art, self-cutting, because if you cut too much, you'll end up with nothing. But if you cut just right, you end up with just a artistic enough amount of less of nothing, which you can then make into something. So
yeah,
I've been cutting with this to actually figure out ways I can turn it into something interesting. I mean, the first idea was to make like a Boxtropolis, like a futuristic box city, which is still an idea on the table.
yeah.
But as you see, this cutter is exponentially just gotten crazy. So after doing all that, I'll bring in another cube. We'll take this cube and actually turn it into a sphere. And we'll just select both of these, slash it, get rid of the outside. Oh, let's try it again. Are we in local? No. Let's try it again. We'll select both of these. C slash. Alright, so there may be something going on. Okay, actually I know what's going on.
Wait, Jerry, again the Skype. Oh my god, what's happening? Give me a second, it's again stuck. So this is because of me, because I wanted to open and show something with Boxcutter. I made a mistake. Sorry guys, just a second. It's gonna work again like last time. I don't know why it stops like this. I wanted to show what I created with your Boxcutter, because I used custom Boxcutter, and now I'm sorry that I tried to do this because I stopped Skype. Just give me a second, Jerry. I apologize for this. We'll cut out this. Okay, we are back. Sorry for this. Right. I wanted to show, because I did something with your custom Boxcutter, something really cool, and I wanted to show it, but never mind, some other stream. So yeah, the guys, I mean, look at these workflows. This does amazing stuff. Like, I'm not gonna show what I did, but for example, I made a thruster, and the inside of it I created in this kind of way. You know that the thruster has a lot of little pieces, but it was fascinating that it was so precise to do it.
And hey, that's an idea right there.
So yeah, the thruster was created in that way, and it has so many options, because look, he's modeling. This can be done for animations, for motion videos, for anything that has multiple pieces like this. Okay, the buildings. I mean, so many options, Jerry. So many options, and I truly love it. By the way, we have one question that they asked. And can we create custom cutter from a mesh? That's the question.
Yes. All right, so this mesh is about to become a custom cutter. So probably not the example they're looking for, but still will be entertaining nonetheless, I hope. So we'll just take this grid, and we're going to use Boxcutter in edit mode, and we'll switch to custom and actually use the grid itself under here. This thing's not called grid, it's called plane. It's always good to make sure. Plane. And now whenever I draw this shape, it will now be my cutter. So basically I'm using this grid that I created, that I subdivided a plane in order to cut a grid formation into this object.
Yeah.
And in this case, it actually did not work so well, which I wonder why it didn't. probably because there's some geometric overlap happening here. Let's try that one more way. But I figured it'd be cool to create a rocket thruster of sorts. But looks like I actually self-cut this one to death. But yeah, you're able to use actually any mesh as a custom cutter. So in fact, anything that you cut as a boolean, you can actually use as a custom cutter. So now we go back and we mark this as plain, not one to take defeat. And so now we've cut a grid formation into this, and then we can use the hops operator of twist 360 in order to rotate this around. And we're able to, we'll give this like something like 3. And when you said the inside of your turbine, that's what I was thinking of, was something like that.
Yeah.
And then of course we could just take that, array it. Okay, not like that. Let's actually try the second array. So in case one doesn't work, that's what we have alternate ones just to assist us with possibilities here.
And we have a complex immediately object. Look at this, guys. I mean, it's immediately a complex object. It was like 5 minutes of work. And for concept artists as me, this doesn't have price, literally. Doesn't have price. So yeah, it's fascinating, really fascinating to see this kind of stuff. I'm always surprised to see it, even though I have been using it for some time, but this is crazy. It's crazy. By the way, guys, if you have some questions, now is the time to start asking them, because we'll be live for 20 more minutes. And Jerry, I'm sure he would like to answer some of your questions. We have one question, Jerry, immediately, and they're asking, what is the difference between hard ops and Boxcutter?
Boxcutter focuses purely on cutting, while Hard Ops is almost more of a workflow assistant. Boxcutter was our second plugin that we made, with Hard Ops being the first one. The hard surface workflow is a little bit more than just cutting. I mean, like if you had just Hard Ops, I would say that right now, until the next update, you're going to be cutting by inserting cubes and then setting them up, and then we'll go up here, select Boolean, like we designed it to be now, and then you'll rotate them around. And this level of control isn't actually terrible. Like, this way of working with just using cubes and inserting them using Shift A isn't really a bad workflow. However, there are better ways that this could be approached. Like, for example, with Boxcutter, we could just go in here with Ngon, and we're just going to create a shape using it like this. So, I mean, it's really up to you as the customer as far as, okay, I went insane there. We'll remove that, and let's try that one more time. My job to go in and investigate why failure occurs. Yeah. So failure is never an option. So we'll just draw a quick little piece. That piece is now a thing. We'll put the origin on geometry. And now this object is a new object brought into this world for us to mess with. So with Boxcutter, we kind of dissected the way that we were doing things before in order to come up with a new system for it. Because it's for people who just want to focus on just the cutting and having fun aspect of it. But for people that are trying to focus on also the hard surface workflow and the workflow assistance that we also focus on, then that's where Hard Ops comes in. Like, they really work best together. Because with
coherent.
Is my computer playing music?
No, there is no music. There is no music. No worries. But yeah, they are coherent, working together.
Because you still need some support tools at the end of the day. I mean, Boxcutter is also a tool of rules. Like, for example, if something's complex and has a bunch of menus and levers and hotkeys, that's more than likely going to be a tool for Hard Ops. Meanwhile, if we're able to simplify it to something that's able to be done just operational, just via clicks, then that's something that may be delegated to Boxcutter. Yeah. So with Boxcutter, we're not allowed to add anything that's a complex system, because it would take away from the freedom that we try to offer concept artists with it. with hard ops being a tool where we can get as complex as we need to, get as crazy as we have to, and add system after system because users have become used to that. And that kind of separation also kind of helps maintain the integrity of the product as far as keeping it from getting too complex, because there's a lot of ideas that we want to do at Boxcutter, but it would involve adding menus and things like that. And the things that customers say we do take into consideration, like if we see people saying, hey, it's become too complicated or something like that, then we'll go back to the drawing board and begin thinking of ways to break it down and actually make that stuff simpler.
Yeah, I know you follow a lot what customers are saying, and you literally analyze every piece of advice they give, which is great. That's why this plugin is developing so good. So yeah, that's look at it, guys. Look, it's going really fast, and I like this design of this thruster, by the way. Really cool stuff, Jerry, there. Really cool.
Thanks.
You gonna now put a little bit materials, I suppose.
Well, right here, I was actually going to, I'm always enthralled with the part of creation. So I brought in an empty, and I'm using the empty at a 45-degree rotation in order to offset mirror this. So this thing's mirrored twice over. And because of the way that we've built hard ops, you could just add booleans, which is one way to work. However, we've taken it a step further. We've also added the ability to sort modifiers, which means that you can add booleans indiscriminately of your modifier stack, and we will actually make sure that they remain in the proper order to ensure that your shading comes out successfully. Because nothing's worse than having your shading getting destroyed. In fact, with this object, we're just going to mirror it across itself just to simplify it, and then we'll go in the stack and actually change the order, causing this to more precisely be in the middle, or it was supposed to. Let's try mirroring this again. So that's 45 degrees. Okay, so it's not perfect on this side. We could just move it over, which will put us at risk. But I'm just showing kind of the hard ops workflow. So I'm still using this cube. I'm just going to use that to cut a split into this. And of course, that split is still live over here, where if I need to, I can just press S and X in order to scale that down onto X in order to create a cut line. This object, for some reason, is on an entirely different layer. We'll just put, in fact, now it's not even, for some reason, scene collection is the first layer listed here, which has always driven me crazy, because the scene collection means in the scene collection and no collection whatsoever. This is actually the first collection, which is quote unquote layer 1. Just drives me crazy. Some of the things about Blender. Another thing too is, while we're talking about rendering, we have various ways to showcase your viewport as well. This is kind of where, imagine Boxcutter having systems for lighting, light cutter coming soon. But if you bring down the drop down, the second tab here actually has preferences for setting up Eevee to have low quality settings or high quality. In fact, if we expand this, you can see what's enabled and disabled upon clicking it, which is the ambient occlusion and the screen space reflections. So we also care about that level of presentation too. Keep in mind that if you were to go to these settings, you would have to exit full screen and come out and go to it over here, which is one of the things we've always been against, is having to exit full screen, right? The best way to concept is by never exiting full screen. You should be able to stay here your entire journey. In fact, another interesting thing is that the third tab is our helper, which will list everything from modifiers to materials. So if we add a material, notice that the material automatically populates because this is a panel of sorts. It actually fixes a glitch that's going on in the helper, where I always throw in my trademark dark, metallic, slightly rough material, and then I'll just select everything in the scene and press Alt-M using the Hard Ops Material Manager to just quickly assign everything. And so that's all there is to it. So we'll just jump this up to HQ just so you can see the difference. So the contact shadows and the reflections, all that stuff, that's also in the Alt-V menu, which is also a part of hard ops. So being able to get through this stuff to quickly get a fine result is what we're after here. With hard ops is you should be able to just get in here, EVHQ, you should be able to select the light, press Q, or not trademark, but our very specific hotkey to go in here and increase the light. We could put an area light in here as well. Let's see, trying to get some sort of light going on in this scene. Just seems a little dark.
Yeah, and you immediately get the scene and everything, which is quite fast.
Yeah, best thing about Eevee is the speed of it. A lot of the stuff that I work on, I'm able to just kind of think through it just on the fly. Like, to switch gears, we'll pop open one more Blender, see how it does. Like Blender's uses extend for me, far outside of just modeling. Also use it for like motion graphics and stuff like that. Like all the ads that we do for releases, I also do using Blender. Like for example, this one is the Boxcutter logo exploding into Skittles to kind of give a clue about what we're going to be going after next. So I mean, we'll jump this over into render because render should look pretty good. And of course, I got tons of depth of field and emission and light, but this is the sort of stuff that used to actually take a moment over in cycles to process. Like there was a time when I used to count cycles, like 1 cycle, 2 cycle, 3 cycle, and it would take literally that long. And then I started getting into the GTX generation, and it was like 1 cycle, 2 cycle, 3 cycle, and they started speeding up. And then finally, it was just like clack, 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 clack. That thing was done. Extending past that, Blender also has a video sequence editor, where if you render out an image sequence, you're able to load it up in here and then mix it, right? Like this was part of Boxcutter's previous ad, kind of a copy machine idea with the logo. And then right here, I actually have it keyed to lower the opacity and transfer into the ad that I just showed you. So if we just let it play out, which looks terrible like that, let's load up DJV. You're up. DJV is one of my favorite applications for just playing back video and playing it back forwards and backwards. So if you're using Windows, it's one of those applications I definitely recommend. But this sort of stuff is, one of the things that I got into Blender for was playing with cubes. Like if you look at my YouTube channel, some of my oldest videos from 10 years ago were me playing with cubes. So it's interesting that it's come back around. Of course, I extend far beyond cubes. I enjoy modeling helmets and hard surface robots and working on a new update to Blender came out. Whenever multiple updates come out in a day for Blender, it makes me wonder if something would happen with the last update. Yeah. Because usually it's one update a day. But if we look at it, 6, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14, 14, 14. So something was happening on the 14th with Blender.
Something very special.
So if you do get into Blender, also recommend the Blender version manager. This thing will help you download and keep Blender up to date while also letting you roll back to a previous version. So, if someone's like, hey, I'm having issues on with the 4th, I could just jump to a 4th version of Blender, see what's going on, test it, and find out what's going on. Sometimes things get so bad, you got to just roll back a couple of days and just chill and just wait for things to blow over.
Yeah, that plugin, guys, is amazing. It's amazing, and I have it use it a lot because Blender changes daily. Look at this, guys. I mean, this is done all with custom cutter. Look at this. It's crazy. It's crazy. Looks like the only spaceship is missing here. I will send you my spaceship so you can put it there and flies over. Like, look at it.
Oh, we got to get a collab in, DARMAR. You'd be a perfect ad.
Let's do it. I'm up for it, absolutely. What I wanted to ask you, because soon we are finishing with stream, and today you showed us a lot of stuff. I want to know one thing. Speaking about spaceships and aircrafts, Will we be seeing you on any event this year? Maybe a BlenderCon?
Oh, everybody's always asking me that. People, y'all are
I'm
trying
not
to
everybody, Jerry. Please,
I
please,
know you guys are always
please.
trying to get me to go outside. I'm really debating on it. I've been getting a lot of pressure about getting a passport. I actually never travel. Um,
You never
I,
traveled outside the USA.
I barely travel in general.
Mm.
I actually barely recently started visiting my hometown again to begin going outside. So I'm hoping for it that I'll be able to make it, at least sit in the audience, get to see people, not trying to go up on stage. Might be dressed up as a big plastic cat, but I'm hoping for it. You know, I didn't even have the Hops Cat helmet on over here.
Yeah, yeah. But listen, if you are coming, I am coming to BlenderCon this year. So I hope you will come because I don't want to see you in public. I would like to see you on the stage because people can learn a lot from you. I mean, guys, I'm always saying that if Blender looked like a person, it would look like Jerry because Jerry knows everything about Blender that there is. Like,
I should have wore a shirt. I'm working at it. Back in the day, they used to. I used to read that you could get Blender certified, right? And I thought that you would have to go up in front of a group of like Blender advocates or something and like show your stuff. No, you just have to pay like 50 euros, and
that's a
it's a
trick.
thing. But I was like, man, I'm gonna have to show these guys that I'm actually competent in Blender. They're gonna ask me the tough questions. This guy didn't ask me a thing. This helmet right here is actually one of my favorites because it kind of showcases hard ops, box cutter, and decal machine.
Yeah, it looks really
Which,
good.
if you ever asked me what was my favorite tool, my answer changes every day. It might be Bezier Mesh Shaper, might be Mirror Tools, might be decal / mesh machine. But these are definitely some of my favorite tools. Like being able to slap info decals on stuff has just changed my life personally. Like I used to be a heavier detailer where every inch of a surface would just be filled with cuts and holes and divots and stuff like that. But ever since this thing has came out, it's shown me that a surface filled with nothingness and just given just some properly well done text can really just set it off.
Very smart. That's a very good subject to talk about because yeah, and now that's fascinating about Blender. You immediately see what's happening there, and you immediately know that you can change. Oh my God, here is a spaceship. Jerry's coming in this to BlenderCon. He is coming.
This was from a previous demo when I was actually obsessed with doing gliders with Boxcutter. It looks like all my decals turned pink, which is what we're looking at here.
Maybe you
So,
erase them or they're in different folder. No.
well, the thing is if you move these files across computers, you should definitely use external data automatically pack into Blend before saving it. So you pack the decals inside of your Blend file. So that's one of those things I was actually working with Machine on. I made this one yesterday, or actually no, I made that one earlier. Where's
This
the
was
other one?
today. This was today.
Yeah, that was just earlier. I make so many files. These are like
Well,
just like little test files.
I'm looking. Jesus, how many files are there? Like.
Oh, last month I kind of I was studying add-on, so I was just kind of doing handheld. So I did handheld after handheld of just just these handheld like things you would use to either refuel vehicles, recharge droids, put
Yeah.
droids to sleep. Here, let's see what the final handheld looks like.
Jerry fit add-on.
Oh, it'd be great. It'd be great to beat add-on. I'm about to get one of his actual tasers, but I had fun over the course of this, kind of learning how to deal with some tricky areas, like, for example, like this area where the surfaces merge together.
Yeah.
This is something that's actually quite trivial to do in a program with an app like a Mesh Machine. However, doing it manually requires a bit of topological control and surface maintenance, which is one of those things I'm into. I mean, that also guides kind of our tool development as we get into these these situations where it's like, how would you make this easier? How would you make it a 1-2 process? And I think Machine's on that same wavelength where he looks at this stuff. He's like, how can I possibly make it easier? Because ideally, with raw Blender out of the box, it's not that easy. It's kind of painful actually, but it gets better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
You really made a couple of add-on tasers and stuff. Yeah, this really reminds of Addon. Addon is a great designer. I wish I brought him on stream, but he's super busy, so maybe in the future.
Always probably working for some megacorp, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did endless add-on handhelds. I was obsessed with these curves and the surfaces, and also putting holes in inconvenient areas because normally you'd want to put the circle on a flat and call it a day. But in fact, with this one, you look at the topology, and it's not even the topology you would expect, right? Like you would think that it's going to be a mess, but really this is more like a highly controlled mess. Still Boolean geometry, but controlled to a level where I'm able to control the surface. So these are the type of things that go over on my channel is where, like Booleans and Ngons get a little bit of a bad rap. But to be honest, even in the Ngon game, us Ngoners have standards. Like we don't just admire any Ngons. If you got some bent up Ngons, we're going to look at that and be like, I don't know, it's not really holding the form very well. Oh yeah, this one was a fun one.
Grenades, if I'm seeing
close this one.
Oh yeah, this is dope. This is dope. I love this.
So for this one on the stage, we should have just done this episode talking about blends in retrospect, just talking about older blend files. For this one on the stage, if we use modifier toggle, we could just turn off all modifiers. So this thing has one modifier, and that is curve. And it just bends it around. And the reason it does that is because I set up a couple of camera cuts. So earlier I was talking about how you can use the Blender sequence editor to create cool camera cuts, right? Like when I was first getting into Blender, everyone was always like, you got to have a demo reel. You got to make a demo reel. How are you going to get a job with no demo reel? And then ArtStation came out, and I started putting my art on there, and I started getting jobs through ArtStation. And the rest is history. But with Blender, you can put some cool camera cuts, like right here. If we play this timeline back, this is first rotation, switch to another camera, toweling across all the grenades, switch to another camera, pulling out of the grenades. So if we turn on the render, which I'm on a NUC right now, so it's not going to play as good as it would be if I was on the AMD computer here with the 2080. But
still you can see everything. Still you can see everything.
But still you can see it in real time. The bloom, the glare, the real time reflections.
Dope.
And so when it renders, it looks great. It looks like that right there.
Yeah, this is insane. I know that I will be playing after this stream with Eevee and with the materials, and the Decal machine came out, right, for 2.8?
Yeah, it's been out for a minute. So right here, I switched it over to EVLQ. So if your computer's choking, you can just switch it to LQ, and things will just play fluidly. Or you can jump it up to HQ, where it's balls to the walls, EV goodness, just kind of demystifying the settings a little bit. Also, if you're the type of person to use indirect lighting, like light volumes or caches, you'll be able to make that stuff as well, making your scene even faster.
Yeah. Impressive. This is really impressive stuff. I mean, guys, if you're not using Blender, start using it. That's all I'm gonna say. What is this, Jerry? We're gonna finish with this one. With this one, we're gonna finish today. So what's happening there?
Oh, I got blasted. What is this? Oh man, I just boom.
Light is too strong.
Well, this one was supposed to actually be a transponder. So if we play it, it would show like a. All right, wait. You gotta give me one more.
No worries, no worries. Let's do it.
All right, find a good one to end this on.
Everything was perfect. Let's finish it with a perfect one. What are we gonna see? Look how many files you have. So many files. Oh, the robot.
Almost.
Easy, we are not in a hurry. As you're looking.
So many good ones in here. I see so many, also platforms. Like I was, I got very obsessed with doing environments with Boxcutter for a moment.
Yeah.
So if this one shows up in the render,
Dope. Dope, really dope.
I don't think I have refraction in this scene.
Now you do. That's a glass in the middle. It should be a glass, right?
It was yeah, it was supposed to be glass. I spend a lot of time transferring between two computers that are sitting on my desk. So
Yeah.
some of these files are made on the main one and then brought over, and it works out perfect. And sometimes it just does not.
Yeah, it's always heavy changing from one computer to another. So many things can go wrong.
Fine, let's see if this one will play me out. All right, so this one was from my recent helmet video, which this one was a real blast to make. Went over the process of talking about creating and maintaining forms throughout Boolean operations to prevent surface distortions and issues like that, to end up with a fine result. One of the new features of 2.8 is the ability to place MP4 videos on the screen. You can place them on a plane. Earlier I was showing it on a bunch of screens, but for this one, we just let it play through, and it'll just slowly rotate and zoom in, showing this most recent Boxcutter ad, which I was particularly proud of. This one was a collaboration with Feral 3D, who more than likely will be working with us in the future on our next ad, which we have been plastering on helmets. I've been trying to figure out good places to put it. Seeing Ben Morrow's thing made me think of the idea of making it holograms as well.
That's insane. This is insane.
Let's see. I actually think I have a one more. There's an office I did that used the hologram.
All of this that you're showing is amazing. I mean,
What drives me crazy is that all these screenshots are just gray nothingness. Like I really wish that I could get it to have a nice render that looks like the scene that I use, because then I'd be able to look at it a lot easier. Because I mean, some of these I could barely tell what they are. Like for example, this one. This one should be a little bit more visual. This one was just a HUD using drivers. In fact, it's just drivers making this populate with arrays randomly, and these are just rotating in perpetuity. All to give the effect of just being a sci-fi HUD.
yeah.
So we were talking about decal machine. Like this is part of what I envision future decals being, is having like a 5-frame image sequence that you're able to toggle on stuff to like fill up a room very quick.
You're always on your toes. You're always on your toes, thinking about.
Gotta be thinking about the next thing.
Yeah. I respect that a lot. Let's find the last one and finish, if there is. You you have so many files, I will get lost.
There was one good. I'll just keep redoing the same idea, and I'll just keep incrementing it by one. So I'll be like a QuickBot, and then QuickBot 1, and then incrementally QuickBot 1_1, QuickBot, like almost like Mario levels when you really think about it. I never really pondered it.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. I think this one is it. I just couldn't tell. Let's see. Is it going to give it to me? So this one was just kind of a test idea, where I wanted to play with the idea of making some windows just all blue, play with reflections. The cool thing about this thing is that I was able to just assemble this in pieces by working on assets and playing with collections. So, I cut up a floor, made a floor, cut up a wall, made a desk, made a book, made these ceiling pieces, and then over here in the one titled assembly, or let's see, in the one titled stuff, I guess I stick with stuff a lot, everything's together. So if we have this play back, the room just darkens and it starts showing the Boxcutter hologram of rooms closed type of thing. So I was messing with this idea a while back. I just forgot to kind of go forward with it. But I did like how the lack of transparency. And the interesting thing about this is, this is just a glass piece, right? So if we look at the shading, all it is just a video
Yeah.
being put into a color ramp, and then that color ramp is changing the mix factor. So it's making it glass as it goes brighter into color. So this sort of experimentation is ripe for Blender. If anyone watching who's on the fence about Blender, just use it like an app. Just get in there, have some fun with it.
Man, it looks incredible. It looks incredible. I'm blown away. I didn't see this, by the way. I don't know how, but I'm blown away. Like,
you gotta follow my Twitter. I'm always posting stuff like this. This is
I
like
don't use Twitter,
daily.
Jerry. I don't like Twitter.
I think I'm following you on Twitter, actually.
I don't know. I made it but I'm not using Instagram for me or Facebook. That's it.
You know what's crazy is if you look at this, like the frames, like right here where it breaks out like the Power Rangers, you see it in the local reflections. Like when Marmoset did this, I was over the top. Like I was like, oh my god, Marmoset has local reflections. I'm gonna always use that thing. I mean, Tony's always in like right here. Like this was like Blender. Oh my god! Like if you're wondering why people are leaving 2.79 and never coming back, just look at these reflections. These reflections are just
this is beautiful.
The height of too much, and those are accidents. You start playing with a scene, putting it together, and that's what it becomes. I think with this thing, I was also playing with creating like a more matte room, but it's probably not going to let me click through it to grab something, or it's not the real scene. But yeah, I'm done.
I don't think it was ever easier to make a short movie. Literally, if I wasn't working on my Inside 44 book, I would make a short movie in Blender. Like, it's crazy.
And I'm just scratching the surface on what's actually capable of being done in this thing. But Blender is so used to playing by themselves, I think, that they've built in the ability to do everything from stabilizing your footage, to tracking your footage, to compositing your footage, to mixing in 3D, to compositing 3D to blend in with it, to putting it together as the final cut, to mixing in the final audio. Like Blender is almost the entire Adobe suite. And in a way, of course the Adobe suite is quite special. They can do a lot, smart layers in Photoshop for one. We were just talking about how amazing they were the other day. But Blender is capable of doing everything that you need it to. Give it the chance. It's capable of doing it all. Maybe not make a game anymore. They removed the game engine. But other than that.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this stream, Jerry. Thank you for coming and showing us Blender, because Blender is a present and the future for me, and I'm sure that everybody, when they see it, is going to be blown away with this. So I would like to thank you for coming, Jerry. Joining me.
Thank you very much for having me, DARMAR.
Oh man, it was such a pleasure to have you here. I hope I will meet you on BlenderCon or somewhere else if I get visa to USA. And I hope we will talk more about Blender, because it's starting to speed up really, really fast.
And it's only going up from here.
Yeah.
Holla.
Yeah. So guys, this was episode 20. Hit the subscribe button if you didn't. This was Jerry Perkins with Boxcutter and HardOps plugin and Blender. If you don't have any of those plugins, please do buy them, because I guarantee your life will change and your modeling will change. There is no other better software than that. Hope you're having a great day or evening. See you on the next stream that Chris Costa is coming. Bye, Jerry.
I'll see that one. Peace.
Peace out. Ciao.